Welcome to Life Transformation Radio. This show is all about life transformations and our journey from where we were to why we are doing what we are doing today. We will discuss the hiccups, the roller coasters, and the blood, sweat, and tears that has been poured out while discovering our purpose. It is all about our transformations. Here is your host, Sean Douglas.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you're tuning in from. This is Life Transformation Radio, and I am your host, Master Resilience Implementer, TEDx speaker, business positioning strategist, and international best-selling author, Sean Douglas. This show is currently heard in over 79 countries. So whether it's your first time joining us or you've been listening to us for some time, I want to thank you to those who are listening from around the world. Life Transformation Radio is all about our transformation. Here, we tell the stories of why we're doing what we're doing. We highlight that transformational moment that changed our lives and how we use it to then transform others and elevate their lives as well. You can listen to us live right here on the Blog Talk Radio Network, Tuesday through Friday between 5:30 and 6:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Join us in our Facebook group, Life Transformation Radio Community, and never miss an episode by subscribing wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. Life Transformation Radio can be heard on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spreaker, Spotify, TuneIn, Player FM, Radio Public, Overcast, CastBox, the Himalaya app, Google Play Music app, available on Pandora, and check out our YouTube channel, Life Transformation Radio. On the show, my guests are entrepreneurs, speakers, business owners, coaches, podcasters, authors, amazing human beings that are impacting the world around them. And my guest today has done exactly that. If you have any questions for any of the guests that I bring on the show during our live broadcast, Tuesday through Friday, between 5:30 and 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, join us and call us up at 657-383-1109. Again, the number is 657-383-1109. Call us up, ask us a question, and join in the fun. And with that, please help me welcome to the show my guest for today, Jonathan Rivera. Jonathan, welcome to Life Transformation Radio.
God, you know, I've always wanted to travel the world, and now I'm in 79 countries. I'm feeling pretty spectacular today.
That's awesome, man. I want to welcome you to the show. You are absolutely going to light this one up, I have no doubt. And it is very fitting to have you in the first 2 months of 2020 because, man, this podcast thing is going crazy this year.
I couldn't agree with you more. I almost quit so many times, and I'm glad I hung around to see what's going on today. It's just it's a renaissance, and it's a beautiful thing, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
Man, it's super cool. So many shows coming out, and everybody's thinking about, well, isn't that a saturated market? Everybody's making a show. Isn't there a saturated market? There's going to be a lot of shows. I'm like, okay, well, you can say the same thing about YouTube. YouTube's got 1 billion, I'm sure by now, millions or billions of YouTube channels, I'm sure. But if you think about it, the podcasters, they quit. They don't stick around. And so they have an average show life. I think they said something between like 7 and 13 episodes or something like that, and they kind of pod fade out.
Yeah, the old pod fade. And you, what are you up to, 300-400 shows over here? So you're killing it.
Yeah, 340 something. And I've got a second show coming out here at the end of the month, and then I've got a third show coming out in the fall.
Dude, you're like the Energizer Bunny of podcasting.
I don't know why. I think of ways. I'm like, oh, that's gonna be a pretty deep niche show. Like, I'm gonna launch that bad boy, you know. So, and I've even heard of people doing purposely like 8-episode shows, and it's just a series. So they do like 8 episodes, and it's like series, you know, of I don't know, it could be whatever the name is, series 1 or season 1, or it's just a series of shows. There's just little micro episodes. So that's starting to come about. You know what I think is going to happen? I think when the popularity of podcasts reaches a boiling point, here's what I think is going to happen. Just like we have actors and actresses in Hollywood, we now have the Ron Burgundy podcast. And I think that celebrities are going to start reprising their roles. Like Adam Sandler is going to start a Billy Madison podcast. And people will tune into that. I think that's
like that idea.
I think that you and I can make a podcast with an alter ego, and we could have a podcast with an alter ego, and it would be super successful.
I see. All right, I see. We're going to go deep in this one.
We're just starting off.
I love it.
So the title of this episode is The Podcast Factory with author and podcast host Jonathan Rivera. Fed up after 9 years at his blue-collar job, Jonathan left to pursue riches in real estate. He made lots of money, lost it all, and rebuilt his life from the ground up. His, quote, family-first focus has led him to create a business that gives him the freedom to take month-long work-optional vacations. Jonathan is the author of 4 books on podcasting, has hosted 11 shows, and he calls me the Energizer Bunny, launched over 40 different shows, over 3,145,240 downloads of the shows at the Podcast Factory. Go to his website, thepodcastfactory.com. Go to Daddy's, DADDYS, daddysworking.com/iTunes. You can check out the podcast there. And while you're there, subscribe and leave a rating and review. Go to Instagram, Facebook, right there in the show notes. Connect with them, send them a friend request, and let them know that you heard his episode of Life Transformation Radio. Now, my friend, the first question I have to ask, and I believe is the best question you could ever ask yourself, is why? Why do you do what you do?
Well, this is such a great question for many reasons, but in particular because I was thinking about this today. I have a friend and a mentor. His name is Mark Evans. They call him Mark Evans, a dream maker. Mark Evans, a deal maker. And he challenged us. We're in a small little mastermind group, and he challenged us to write a letter to ourselves 20 years ago. Write a letter to you 20 years younger. What would you say? What are the things that you would want yourself to know? What are the lessons you want to share? What are the pitfalls that you want to help avoid? And I actually wrote this morning, and I'm looking at it. It's weird. We didn't even plan this. It's weird that it's sitting right in front of me because I have been thinking about it all day. And my why, I figured out, it took me till I was 42 to figure it out because I'm obviously a little bit slow. But I have this thing, and I share it all the time in my show, Daddy's Working, is the 4 pillars of purpose. And my 4 pillars of purpose are family, faith, fitness, and finances. I make all my decisions based on these 4 pillars. And so my why is my family, my why is my faith, my why is my fitness, and my why is my finances.
That's incredible, man. That's pretty much the same areas that I would say that most people share. I have a theory that everybody shares the same 5 areas. You have your health, your wealth and finances, your personal relationships, your professional relationships, and your professional development, and then spirituality. Yeah. Everybody has those 5 areas in common. And you don't have to be religious to be spiritual. Spirituality is just simply believing in something, your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, and what's inside you. Religion is just the exercise of those thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. So I
want to add to what you said. Everybody worth knowing shares those. If you don't, you're probably not worth knowing.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, man. So it took you till 4. I don't think that's a bad thing, though. You kind of talked about it like it was a bad thing. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. It took you to 42. I think that's great.
Look, I'm always learning. I'm always growing, and I'm always looking to get better. And so even with knowing these things and being able to vocalize them, it's really in the last year because I did the show, Daddy's Working, and I had to have a purpose for the show. And those were the topics I want to talk about. But even right now, I'm going through a transition where I want to get deeper in my faith. It's a new season of my life. Last season, which wasn't too long ago, I got really deep into fitness. I don't know if you ever heard of 75 Hard, but I did 75 Hard,
No.
took care of my body, lost 20 pounds, and just like changed my whole life. But it's a constant evolution, and so these are the core that have been consistent throughout my whole life.
Gotcha. No, I haven't. That's a new one. Hard 75. Is that what you said?
75 Hard, hashtag 75 Hard.
Oh,
Andy Frisella, he used to do the MFCEO podcast.
Oh, yeah. Andy Frisella. Yeah, I got turned on to him last year with Arite and I think it's Arite or something like that, Syndicate. Somebody told me, dude, you got to listen to this guy's podcast. Oh, man. The first thought, and I was like, great, another muscle-bound, bearded freaking a-hole, right? But listening to his stuff, I'm like, I kind of like this muscle-bound, bearded a-hole. I like what he's doing. Like, this is awesome. I like the people who are no BS, no fluff, and they turn away those people that are like, oh, I can't believe he'd say that. That's so terrible. Like, I love it when those people go away. Like, why can't we be upfront with people? I think we beat around the bush too much. We talk a lot about feelings, but it's just, I feel like we beat around the bush too much. Like, just tell people what you need to know. I mean, don't be an a-hole about it, but I mean, just be upfront. Like, stop beating around the bush. I don't know. That's just my thing. I'm
with you, man. We jokingly refer to it as repulsion marketing around here, like repulsing all the people that don't belong.
Yep, absolutely. So let's talk about your transformational moment. The theme of the show, Life Transformation, is we're headed down one path, and all of a sudden we do a 180 or we do a 90, or we just kind of get off the beaten path. Like, they took us way out of norm. So what's that for you? What's a transformational moment that happened in your life, which then puts you on the path to what you're doing today?
Man, and this is right back to that letter. That's why this is so weird that we're talking about this. But this is straight off the letter. I'm going to read this to you because I can't put it any better.
Yep.
Right now, you think you know it all, and I want you to know you don't know crap. That's not what I wrote there. Almost everything you think you know is 100% false. Allow me to set you straight. Number one, Mom is going to die soon. That's why you need to give her lots of love, kisses, and hugs while she's still here. Enjoy every second you have with her. When she dies, it changes everything for you. Instead of waiting for that to happen, here's what you need to know. Life is short. Live every day. Enjoy every moment and be the best version of you every single day. So Mom passing away, I used to be a blue-collar worker. You said that in the intro. I was an electrician. I was running jobs. I had my own van. Had all the sweet jobs doing electrical rooms and things like that. And I had already accomplished all there was to do. I was a foreman. I had the van. There was nothing else. And when Mom passed away, I had to look at life differently because it was unexpected, and I was unhappy, and I needed something different. And so that was where my first big transformation. I've had other ones, and I've had some since, obviously, but that was the first one that set me up with, I can't do this blue-collar crap anymore. I'm not making a big enough impact. This is not what I'm meant to do. And so I actually got into real estate about that, and that's part of the intro too. Made $1 million, lost $1 million, and had to rebuild it all. That all came from Mom passing away and me learning that I needed to do something different.
There's a lot of people that get into real estate and cycle hard too. Did you fall hard?
Hard is a mild way of putting it. I fell. I lost more money than I had. Let me put it that way.
I'm gonna tell you, man.
Several years.
The people that I know a lot of people in real estate. A lot of people in real estate. Seems like most. Like I was in a real estate mastermind. I don't even know anything about real estate. I just wanted to become like a net worth millionaire and whatever else. But these people, I'm going to tell you what, all of them who have cycled and like lost money and all that stuff and then built it back, they all fell hard. And, most of it was 2008, whatever. But, I mean, they, I know a guy in 2004. He's like, man, the economy is great. I was just too risky, and I made a lot of mistakes, and I was being stupid. And, so seems like a lot of wealth is built in real estate, but you can fall fast.
It's part of the fun. Then you better learn how to get up or you're done.
Right. So let's talk about this. The Podcast Factory. I'm intrigued. I've done some research. Sounds like you're the guy to go to when you want to launch a show.
Yeah, that's definitely part of what we do. And actually, funny enough, it came out of this whole real estate thing. When the market tanked and I lost everything, I really didn't realize at that point that I didn't know anything about business. And I'm like, well, I had all the bad self-talk. You know the bad self-talk. Like, you don't deserve this. Why did you even buy that? You know how all that goes. We all get it. But I thought, all right, if I'm going to do this, I got to do it differently because clearly I didn't know what I was doing. And a friend in one of the I used to be a member of one of the real estate investment groups, and a friend put me on to Audible, and I started reading audiobooks because at the time I wasn't a great reader. But with audiobooks, I discovered this weird thing called iTunes. And I found all these podcasts and this whole other world of marketing and of management and of online business. And that was my education as I was being reborn into real estate. I was learning from podcasts, and eventually I got myself a Mac computer and realized it had GarageBand and started making a podcast of my own. In fact, it's funny. I was telling you I hadn't been on Blog Talk Radio in years. The first podcast I ever did was in 2008. It was called Real Tech Guy Radio, and it was right here on Blog Talk Radio, believe it or not.
Wow. Is it still around, or has it been deleted?
I looked it up. Yeah, I think it probably got deleted because I was looking it up as I was poking around and doing an investigation. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Huh. Well, you never know. Sometimes, it probably got deleted because in 2018. So I started Life Transformation Radio at the end of February in 2017. And I remember seeing a notice or something that iTunes, like Apple, was going to go and wash out all these shows that have just been sitting there forever.
Yeah,
they're just going to wash them all out. Like, you need to upload an episode, or they told you, like, if you have a podcast, like, upload something, show us you still want it. Like, otherwise they're going to kick it out. So that's probably what happened is nobody did anything with it and probably just kicked it out. So
I'm glad. I don't want anybody to hear it anyways.
Oh my God. That's funny. Was it bad? It was like a really bad show?
It's so long ago. It's like a long time ago. It's a different guy. It's a different voice. It's a whole different thing. I'd rather just sweep that under the rug.
Right. So you're a host of 11 shows. Or you've hosted 11. Can you name them all?
Can I name them all? Probably not. But right now I'm actively hosting 3 or 4, and that's Real Estatepreneurs, Financial Advisor Marketing, Daddy's Working, and I've got another one I'm working on, Behind the Scenes.
So what's Daddy's Working? What is that, like an entrepreneur show about kids?
It was my take. So, like you said, how could I be the podcast guy and not have my own show? So I co-hosted 11 shows, like you said, and I never had my own show because I was always doing the co-host thing. And when I decided to do my own show, I wanted something that gave me room to breathe, because I believe that if you're going to have longevity in podcasting, you need to be able to evolve. And so I didn't want to talk about marketing. I didn't want to talk about podcasting. I wanted to talk about something that gave me room to evolve and something that people could grasp onto, something that we could create a movement around, and that was Daddy's Working. Like, we've all heard this, and you're sitting here, you're recording, you're doing an interview, and here comes a kid yelling and screaming down the hallway. Ha! He wants to come give Daddy a kiss, and Mommy yells, "Don't go in there. Daddy's working." That we can all get behind. We've all heard it, and so that's where the four pillars come in from: is family, faith, finances, fitness. Is those are the topics that we like to talk about and get into, but it's all about Daddy working and still having that work-life harmony.
Got it. Oh, very cool. So, if someone, so immediately, I haven't heard the show, but immediately I already have, if you take guests, I have an amazing guest, and then he has a podcast called Front Row Dads.
Nice.
And it'd be a great fit. So my mentor and coach, John Vroman, has a podcast called The Front Row Factor, and also a show called The Front Row Dads. And it's how to become, so this whole thing's about living in the front row. Live life in the front row. And the front row of life is that you experience everything there is to experience in life. You're open, you're present, you're there. But no phones at the dinner table. You're one-on-one with your kids. There's no like that. Daddy's working or whatever. Like there's work time, but then his whole focus is you need to be a family man that happens to have a business versus a businessman who just happens to have a family. Like, you need to identify yourself as that. So when I heard family focus, I'm like, bro, yes. So I'll make a email connection to you and John Vroman and get you guys connected. He's doing amazing things, and he has another show coming out called Front Row Moms, how to be the best mom possible, right? Like how to be, the mom that is fully engaged, fully present. Is it a stay-at-home mom that also homeschools the kids? What is it? So very cool stuff going on there. I'll definitely email connect you with John Vroman. So that'd be a great topic of discussion for you guys. Family first and Daddy's working. So
thank you.
So you're absolutely welcome. So with podcasting, man, I mean, we could sit here and talk all day about it. Podcasting is getting big, but I think that there's going to be a lot of different variations coming, right? I mean, true crime is one of the top podcast categories besides comedy. I think comedy is number one. I think it's number two is that one. So what do you think? Where do you see the podcast industry going this year?
So I agree with you on that, and I'm pretty sure we've both seen the same stats with true crime and comedy and that kind of thing. And it comes down to people wanting to be entertained. That's what people really want. And I see more of that, more people putting in a production effort, more people putting a show together. And it's one of the things that we work with when we're working with our clients. It's like, whoever this show is for, we need to entertain them and then inform them and then get action. So, yeah, I see more and more people coming onto the scene. I see more and more podcasts crashing and burning because they haven't considered who their listener is. But the people that are going to do the best are the people that first think about, who is this show for? And what do I want them to know? And what do I want them to do? And if you think about those things when you're building a show, you can create what I would call a journey for that listener. And so I think the people that are doing the work to know who their show is for before they ever record are going to be the successful ones. But more and more people are getting into podcasting. More and more big companies like Spotify is buying up company after company. So it's a big deal because it's easier than ever to get a podcast. Back in the day when I started, I had to plug in my iPod thingy to the computer and download, and I only had so much room. Now these things are coming in over the air hot right into your car. And so the audience is getting bigger and bigger, and those who know who their audience is, know what they want their audience to do, and can be entertaining while doing it are the ones that are going to thrive in the next wave of podcasts.
I love how you said that the production value has to go up. Like, I remember a lot of different podcasts in the beginning was just, hey man, just do it from your phone and you got a podcast, blah blah blah. Like, I listened to Joe Polish and
Yes.
Gene Jackson.
I love marketing.
Love marketing. Love that show. I've known Joe Polish. I known of Joe Polish. He never knew me. I knew of Joe Polish since end of 2018, all of 2019. Like, absolutely loved what he was doing. Only because my friend Christopher Lockhead, who has the #1 show, Lockhead on Marketing, and Follow Your Different, tandem shows, both top 10 shows. He actually made a joke that he beat out Gary Vaynerchuk because he hates Gary Vaynerchuk, but he's like, I'm better than Gary. Like, it was super funny. But he like, dude, Joe Polish, man, is just one of those amazing marketers. And in the first couple episodes, I'm like, dude, he's using his phone, and then he calls it out. He's like, I don't care what anybody says, and he's reading reviews of his podcast. You guys sound like you're calling from a tin can. He's like, well, actually, I'm calling in from a phone, and we're using phones, and I don't care what you guys think. It's just a podcast. We're delivering value. And then as the show progresses, you start hearing not phones but actual podcast mics, and he talks about the equipment. So it's an evolution of things. I mean, the show started back in 2012, 2013 or something like that. So it's been going on a while. But I think you're absolutely right that as podcasts evolve, we're going to start seeing the production value have to go. It just has to. It has to go up.
Yeah. Even I did it. So my first, what I call my content ball, my first 8 or 10 episodes on Daddy's Working, I did extra production because I wanted it to sound different than everything else. So I've got music coming in and sound effects to go with the stories and different things just to engage that listener and bring them into a world because they want an experience. They want to have entertainment. They want an experience, and they want to remember that feeling that you give them. And so it's inevitable that to stand out, you'll have to do a little bit extra work, and I think that's just normal. That's the way things happen. But still, like, I love marketing, dude. They were delivering so much value that I could overlook it. And so I still say that even with low production value, if you know who you're talking to, you really got that dialed in, and you're going to deliver value, people will listen.
Oh, absolutely. And the fact that podcast apps are being put into the cars is just I mean, I literally get into a car. I'm like, oh, look, a podcast app. Like, weird. Like, that's the transformation. We talk about transformation. That's the transformation right there. As soon as podcast, I mean, I did history on this, and it turns out that not IBM, it was like Compaq or some computer company, started audio blogging in like 1993, 1994. And according to what I've read on the internet and Wikipedia, like all these podcast sites, like this computer company made audio blogging popular because they were recording all of their blogs and then sending it out on like discs and stuff. And then, have you ever seen the 7-set DVD set, on QVC for $9.99 right now, like, or Tony Robbins cassette tapes? Like, that was pretty much what it was. You get a box full of tapes or CDs or whatever. But that's what they were doing. And then 10 years later, Apple comes and goes, podcasting. We're going to make an iPod so that people can put their podcasts onto it. That never happened. People put their music on it. People didn't put any podcasts on. People weren't even listening to podcasts. The iPod comes out, fills it full of music. Like, crap.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, I filled mine with podcasts. No, I filled mine with podcasts. But that, I mean, it's changing, right? It's getting easier, and that's one of the beauties of it. There's two parts of it. It's getting easier both to consume, and it's getting easier, like you said, just record on your phone, man. It's getting easier to produce. And so I keep going back to the same thing, knowing who you're talking to and what you want that podcast to do for them, and keeping them entertained and having a clear and concise and actionable message is what's going to make you stand out. Because you don't need, and I saw you post about this, like people are into the vanity metrics. They need 10 million downloads and all that. You don't need 10 million downloads, bro. You just need the right people listening that are going to take action on your offer.
90% of people on this post that I made, I made it on my pages, and then I put it in podcast groups. I'm like, let's see what happens, right? My followers were like, oh, my God, that's amazing. Yep. And all my friends who are podcast hosts are like, dude, I totally get it. Like, oh, this one lady is like, I could write a book about this. Like, holy smokes, this is ridiculous. And, right? I put it in podcast groups. I put it in like Podfest and podcast guest connections and podcast hangout and all these Facebook groups that I'm a part of. I put the same exact post in there with mixed reviews. All of my people are like, dude, you're so right. Nailed it. On fire. Heck yeah. Like all my like big podcast friends. And then all of these people and most of the people that pissed on me and dumped on me was all people who were like true crime podcasts. Like, I'm not even joking. They're all true crime podcasts, which I'm assuming they don't have guests on. However, they were like, well, bro, it's his business and he can do what he wants. So get over it, Mr. Butthurt. I'm like, dude, you totally missed it. You missed. I was like, don't look at vanity metrics. Downloads do not equal listens. You know how many podcasts I've downloaded in Apple, but I've never heard? None. No. Like all of them. I haven't heard, like, I've downloaded a bunch, and then I'll go back and play them, But now I listen to podcasts because I have an Android phone. I listen to podcasts on the Google Play Music app, which is also Google Podcasts. They just merged the apps together. So that's how I listen to podcasts. So if it's on Google, I search it, boom, got it, and then that's how I listen to it. That's how I listen to podcasts. So, I try to find some of these shows that these people are like, oh, I'm in this true crime podcast. And I look, I'm like, you're not even on Google. Like, what the hell are you doing? And they're dumping on me because I said vanity metrics. Like, it's his business, bro. He can do whatever he wants. Like, sounds like you just want to call people out. Like, what kind of a-hole calls people out on social media? And my immediate response was, social media exposes people. Welcome to the game.
Wow.
Sorry.
I got you fucked up, didn't I? I knew you were passionate about that one.
Man, I was like, what is wrong with people? I'm like, don't look at vanity metrics. I bet you these are the same people that look at their Facebook page and go, I have 5,000 likes. I'm like, you bought all 5,000 of those.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, likes don't equal dollars. I can't wait until Instagram gets rid of likes. I can't wait for that day. Then what's going to happen? Like, somebody didn't like my post. Oh, sorry, we don't have likes anymore. That sucks. Like, you just got to engage. So a better metric for me is ratings and reviews, audience engagement. Will I get for example, on Blog Talk Radio, which I absolutely love, I have a chat box. And so I open up the chat box, and it's like a Facebook kind of implementer, But is my audience engaged? And I've gotten phone calls on my show, which, by the way, if you want to call in, it's 657-383-1109. And I get Facebook group community. We post there. People message me about my show through Facebook Messenger, but through the page. And then I get emails like, man, this was a great episode. And, or when I post the episode, they were like, oh my God, this is great. Like, this is awesome. So my audience is engaged. Or when somebody comes on my show, do they have a free download? And is that download, that free gift, that everyone that comes on a show, 100% should have a free download for the audience? I mean, what way better to build your email list when you have a free gift for the audience that you're serving?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like for you, if you had a free download about the 5 things you must do first before launching a show, I'm creating a guide that is the no BS, no fluff guide to marketing your podcast. That's coming out. It's going to be a download. And so when I'm on a podcast talking about podcasts, I'm like, look, here's a download for you guys for this. If I'm on a speaker podcast, here's a speaker download for you guys. Like, that's a great way to build your email list, and it's free. So you give a free gift to the audience. They download it. They come into your ecosystem. That's a great way.
Yeah. And that's I actually have gone over this over and over again, and I've written newsletters about it and recorded podcasts about it for my clients, and that's what I tell them. Downloads don't mean diddly. Don't worry about that. The number that we're looking at is how much more money are you making now? And so we tie everything back into the bottom line because we're working with coaches, we're working with consultants, and at the end of the day, these guys are making sales on the phone. Are your sales easier? How many more sales are you getting? How many mentions are you getting in the podcast? And what does your bottom line look like today versus the same quarter last year?
Yep. Yeah, and there's so I'm friends with some guys from Libsyn like Rob Walsh and Rob Greenlee, and he's always letting everybody know, like, dude, you're just not going to monetize your show. Like 8%, I think he said 7 or 8% of all the podcasts are actually making money. Like you're just not going to monetize the show in a way that like John Lee Dumas is monetizing his show, or
Right.
Joe Rogan is monetizing his show. Like everybody thinks, oh, I'm going to start a show, I'm going to get advertisers and sponsors, and I'm going to sell stuff on there, and I'm going to make $1 million. It's just not going to happen. However, Kava, I've gotten booked to speak off a podcast. I've gotten $2,500 clients off a podcast. I've gotten a $10,000 client off a podcast. It's just, and actually those two clients that came was because I had a free download. They got into my ecosystem. I was sending emails through my email list, and boom, they became clients. And they actually emailed me and said, hey, I've been receiving your newsletters and things like that. Would absolutely love to talk about coaching. Like, let's do it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you never know, man. And that's why I said vanity metrics are garbage. You never know who's listening.
That's it. I joke around. It always feels like somebody's watching me. People are watching. People are watching, and you do not know
funny.
it.
That is hilarious. So I do something called creating, launching, monetizing a podcast, and the way that I monetize the podcast is by having those free downloads that the podcast guest or even the host has. You know, hey, everybody, if you're listening right now, download this or this or this or this, you know, whatever, like towards the end of the show. You know, sometimes it's a solo podcast. Maybe the third episode in will be a guest, and then 2 or 3 more episodes in, and then a guest. So we do because I've launched 6 podcasts. How many shows do you have on Podcast Factory? How many shows have you launched? It's like 40 shows, something like that, isn't it?
Oh, that was an old. Like right now, we have about 30 active clients, so it's probably about
That's
50
awesome.
or 60.
That's amazing. What's number? Is it the audience? But what is the number one failure that you see over and over and over again, and you just don't get it? You're like, why? What's the number one failure?
The failure to launch. That's the number one failure. Like, people get all up in their head and get confused. We put people on rails. We have a system. That's why it's called the Podcast Factory, and we can deliver them to the promised land. All they have to do is get in the cart and ride. And some people will still get in their head, get stuck, get worried, start doubting themselves, get those little voices. And if you don't launch, you can't get the benefits. So that's the biggest one.
That's awesome. Very cool, man. Hey, man, I want to thank you for your time. It's been absolutely incredible to have a conversation with you finally. I see all your stuff on social media, the Podcast Factory page, and you're doing incredible things, man. And you know, with all these shows coming out, there's been some that I'm like, oh, man, this one's bad. Like, the podcast graphic is, like, really bad. And, like, some of the audio, I'm like, oh, geez, that's not good. But like you said, and I agree, man, with podcast evolution coming and all the podcast events. I speak at PodFest. Are you going to PodFest this year?
It's in Orlando. I've been thinking about it. I saw that you're speaking there.
I'm speaking there. Yep. I spoke there last year, and then I spoke at Outliers Podcast Festival. I speak there every year. I speak at National Publicity Summit in New York City. I speak at New Media Summit, which is another podcast event by Steve Olsher. And Joe Pardo's got an event called Mid-Atlantic Indie Podcast something or other. But Super Joe, man, he's amazing. Joe Pardo's been podcasting since the dawn of time, it seems like. Very cool guy. But with more podcast events coming up, I mean, there's a Christian podcast event that I just saw that's happening at the end of February. A lot of my Christian podcast friends are going to that. Asked me if I was going. I'm like, I didn't even heard of this. So with all the podcast events popping up, you got to step up your game now. This isn't just let me record it from my phone and you got a podcast. I mean, this is going to be a full production thing.
Yeah. Put a little effort into it. Know who you're talking to, and make sure you connect with those people.
Yep, absolutely. What is the one takeaway for the audience as we close the show? We always close with a takeaway. What is the one takeaway that you want the audience to know and understand?
I would go back to that point we keep making there is no matter what your communication is, no matter what media you're using, whether it's blog, whether it's email, whether it's social media posts or podcasting, it's really thinking about who this post is for, who this story is for, and what you want them to do. If you want your content to get you results, no matter what the media, know who it's for, know what you want them to do, and plan that journey ahead of time before you write one word, read one word, or record one word.
Mm-hmm. I love it, man. Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on the show. It is an absolute honor to talk to you. You are absolutely crushing it in the podcast space, man. Just an industry standard for everybody to to follow, and you're doing it right, man. So I applaud you. And I'm looking forward to see what happens in 2020, man, with podcasting and where the podcast factory goes.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you being such a fun host and having me.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much. Life Transformation Radio listeners, an amazing guest, literally impacting an entire industry. Connect with him. Send him a friend request on Instagram and Facebook and let him know that you heard his episode of Life Transformation Radio. If you're thinking about starting a podcast, if you need podcast marketing help, if you need figuring out how to monetize a podcast, contact him. Go to thepodcastfactory.com and check out his show, daddysworking.com/iTunes. Go check out his show, subscribe to his show, and subscribe to Life Transformation Radio. Jonathan and I are both here to help you in your podcast needs. If you're thinking about it, if you have a show or your show is failing, contact us. Let us help you. As I close the show, I always say live your brand. Find opportunities every day to live out the core values that you hold deep in your heart. And I call this living your brand. So until next episode, live a great life.